God never left my side. And in those first early months where the pain was just so intense and excruciating, it was hard not to focus on that. But I ended up using that experience when I was going in and out of operating rooms and in and out of therapy sessions and having all these difficult things done to try and be joyful in those circumstances so that when I'm in those rooms with those people and they can see that I can still feel joy while I'm suffering and I'm in pain, that's what we want our Christian faith to show to people, right? That even in the darkest of times, we recognize that that's when God is doing his best work in us.
Welcome to the What's Her Story podcast. This is a ministry especially for the women of Rock Harbor Church, Florida. Each week, we are talking to another woman from our church congregation. We're learning about her story, her journey, and the things the Lord has taught her along the way. You're going to hear some funny moments, you're going to hear some tough moments, but hopefully you're going to find some people that you can really connect with in real life, come alongside, do life together, as we continue to grow in relationship with each other and in our walks with the Lord. You're not going to want to miss an episode. I'm your host, Jenny Zentz. I'm the discipleship pastor at Rock Harbor, and I am so honored to be on this journey with you as we ask, what's her story? Miss Gina Lees. Yay! Welcome to the What's Her Story podcast. And you are our number one, our first interview. I'm so glad you're here.
Yes, me too. It's really a blessing, Jenny, and I really appreciate you asking and letting me be a part of this to bless the other women, not just in our congregation, but to anyone who may be listening.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to do this. So this is the first episode of this podcast, and we are really intentionally designing this for especially the women of Rock Harbor Church in Florida so that we can get to know each other better and better, and hopefully listening to each other's stories form connections and relationships that just organically grow into discipleship. So we just start doing life together. So I am going to ask Gina a few questions, and this is how all of the episodes will go. There'll be same questions, and they share as much as they want or as little as they want. And at the end of this, we'll see if someone wants to connect and get to know you on a more one-on-one basis. We'll talk about that option as well. So this could be a lot of fun. So Gina is she's been an OG. She's been around Rock Harbor since we started. Rock Harbor Church started, if you don't know, in the fall of 2019, just before the pandemic, as we were meeting in an elementary school gymnasium. Or cafeteria, I guess, didn't even have a gymnasium. So that was the beginning, and she was there from the start. Were you guys at the first service? When did you guys come along to Rock Harbor?
We were not at the very first service. We started going in October of 2019.
Okay.
So the church
Very
had
close.
just started, and yes, we were in the cafeteria. And actually, Doug and I used to sit behind you and Tim and your kids every week
Yeah.
in that cafeteria. So that was how I had originally met you at
Yes.
Rock Harbor. So yes, we've been there pretty much from the beginning.
That's awesome. I love it. All right. Well, so before we get too far into your story, why don't you tell us, you already told us how long you've been there, but tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, your family, kind of introduce yourself to us.
Hi, Gina. I come from a large Italian family. I'm the youngest of five kids. I was raised in the Catholic Church, went to church faithfully every week until I became a teenager. And we moved to Florida, and we had to start doing open confessionals where you weren't in the box, where you were actually sitting face to face with the priest.
Oh,
And that was a little mortifying as a teenager.
oh my
So
gosh.
I
That
did
gives
get
me chills
away.
right now.
I did get away from my faith for most of my 20s. I am married to my husband, Doug, for 23 years. When I met him, both of us were divorced. He was raising four little girls, and the youngest was 8. I met the twins on their 10th birthday, and the oldest had just turned 12.
Wow.
So I became a stepmom at an interesting time in girls' lives.
Mhm.
So we are a blended family. I came with a dog. Doug had four girls. Um,
Wow.
and we
All of a
have,
sudden, the stepmom of four girls in the teen tween. Wow. Wow.
yes, such a blessing for me. I always wanted to be a mom. I wanted to have a big family like I grew up in, and it wasn't the picture that I had painted for myself
Hmm.
of my life, but it has been such an immense blessing to me and has taught me so many things throughout the years. And the girls are all in their 30s now. And I look back at my path in life, and it was just not at all what I had planned for myself. But thank goodness God goes before us. So when I met Doug, I had just made the decision to go back to church. And it was at Calvary Chapel in Melbourne. And Doug had been wanting to try that church as well. So our second date was going to Calvary Chapel.
Pretty good idea.
Yeah, it was wonderful, and I ended up getting saved there and being baptized there. I was in my 30s, and we can talk more about my faith journey later in the segment. I know you have some questions for me about that, so I don't want to
Yeah.
go into too much detail there, but
Okay.
Rock Harbor has been an immense blessing for our community, and we are just so overwhelmed by what God is doing and the people that He's bringing to our church.
Yeah. How'd you guys find out about Rock Harbor?
So, great question. When we moved from West Melbourne to Melbourne Beach, which will be 10 years next month, one of the things we really wanted to do was be involved in a faith-based community because we like being involved in our church. We like serving, and we just weren't finding anything here beachside. So we were driving the 45 minutes back across the bridge faithfully every week, staying at Calvary Chapel, and I'm not a huge social media person, but I do go on Nextdoor a lot. And I saw it on Nextdoor that they were trying to start a church and were looking to meet people. We didn't go to that very first meeting, but I had it in my heart. And I really felt like that's where we were supposed to be when the time was right.
Hmm.
And a variety of things happened over those first couple months that allowed us to then come to Rock Harbor, where I met you.
I know.
And a lot
Crazy.
of other wonderful, wonderful people there. So we just feel like God has really done an amazing work in this community. There's so many people here that were waiting and praying for
Mhm.
years for a church like Rock Harbor, for this community that we live in. And God has gone over and above,
Oh, he
as he
always does,
often
doesn't he?
does. Yes.
Oh, goodness. I know. It makes me want to, I was like, tears.
I know.
It's
I
just
know. I
amazing
know.
how the journey of all of us, together and separately and coming and Kevin and Angie's faithfulness and just the way that the Lord has blessed the church to grow as it has and the community we're in. And I don't know, we always say, as a staff, it's really not about numbers. It's about not the number of our people, but the depth of our people. It's like, let's make Jesus the main thing. Let's
Mhm.
dig into the word. Let's not compromise. Let's stand on this. But as you do, and you love each other and you give to each other and you pour into a community and you just try to love and serve the way Jesus did, people are drawn to that. Jesus said, if I be lifted up, I draw men unto me, and that's, I feel like a very big story of Rock Harbor, but I'm so thankful for how Kevin and Angie just got out in the community and still are, and drew the people their hearts. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
a special
And
journey.
I want to do a shout out to you, Jenny, because there was a brief period of time for family reasons that we left Rock Harbor and went back to our old church about a year or so. And during that time that I was gone, I kept in touch with a lot of people there, but you were always so good about reaching out to me, not just to see how I was doing and how things were going, but to take the time to meet with me and spend time with me. And it was such a loving, beautiful thing to do. And it really, I knew we'd be back someday. We just didn't know when. And that first day that we came back, the reception that we received, it really felt like coming home. It was overwhelming, the number of people before we even made it in the door, while we were still in the parking lot, that were so happy that we were back. And it's just been an immense blessing. So I don't know if I've ever actually personally thanked you for that, but I'd like to do that here because it
Thank you.
was something that really meant a lot to me and really helped me during a difficult time.
Thank you. I call Gina my big sis. It's been an amazing connection and reconnection with us because, as you said, with family and stuff, you guys had to head back over across the bridge for a little while and we missed you, but you made such an impact on all of us prior to that that just never left our hearts. And then reaching out to you and us really reconnecting. And we went to Mel's and had lunch, and it was like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, this is my person. And the timing, I think, in both of our lives to refine that relationship, not refine, but refined, rediscover, maybe
Yeah.
both, was just perfect. But you're right. I remember the first Sunday you guys came back. Everybody was so excited. I was like, did you see Doug and Gina are here? I'm like, I know.
It truly was a coming home. And, I have found I came to Christ late in my life. I was in my 30s, and I'm finding more and more the older that I get that my faith-based family is such a crucial part of our life. In every facet of it. There isn't anything in our life that our church family doesn't touch.
Yeah.
And it's such a wonderful thing to walk around this community and see people in their Rock Harbor t-shirts, and the connection that we all have with each other, and the people that God is bringing to the church,
Yeah.
with the amount of giftings and talents and the hearts that they have and the experiences that they bring. And one of the first things that Doug and I noticed when we started coming back was, we used to joke when Rock Harbor was small that we felt like we needed to adopt a blonde 4-year-old because
There were so many.
so many young people in the church, which is such a blessing. And it was the first time in our life where we were ever felt like the oldest people somewhere.
Right? I know. I
And
felt like I needed to adopt a blonde because I never had a blonde with it.
But God has now brought more people in our age group, and even older than us. And we have this beautiful, it's such a sign of a healthy, thriving church to
Yeah.
have all of these young families, but we also have this wide gamut of age groups that are coming and being fed, and
Hmm.
the different seasons of life, the things that people bring to the church as the body of Christ is really a beautiful thing to see in action.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's so exciting to see all the varying stages and ages and backgrounds come together because you're right. There have been, when it started, there were a lot of young families,
Mhm.
fair amount younger than mine, much like we are not like the young kids. Like there were young kids, I'm talking about our children, not ourselves. But there, we were never the
Yeah.
young kids, but they were like, littles, like
Hmm.
toddlers everywhere. And then as we've grown, the teenagers are growing. The 65 and over would be the biggest growing for a while. And now our young adults, young professionals, singles in
Yes.
their 20s, I mean, that's growing. And it's wow. Like, wow,
Yes.
so the blessing to build structure and there's a place for everyone to play, as Kevin likes to say, everybody gets to play because there's a place
Mhm.
for everybody, because
There
there is
is.
a need for just coming together. And we can't do it all. We as in like, 5 staff members cannot connect all these people. And it's so exciting to see people stepping in and
It
building those
is.
relationships and just doing life together. So your current life stage
Yes.
is you're empty nesters, right?
We are empty nesters. Our daughters are all in their 30s. And right about the time they were all leaving college, leaving the house, leaving college, my mom, who's in her 90s now, started to have some significant health problems. And Doug and I have been looking after her for many, many years.
Yeah.
18 years, but really the past 10 years have been very, very intense with her. And she lived with us for a period of time. Most of the time, she lived around the corner because she likes her independence, and I really respect that about her age. But she just made the decision this past December that she was ready to go into an assisted living facility, which, in all honesty, has been really hard on Doug and I. Because it was such a big part of what we did, and we were used to
Yeah.
seeing her every day and being with her every day. But God, in his faithfulness, we found the perfect spot for her, and she is thriving there. and loving life. And when I go and visit her, sometimes she actually is shooing me out of the room because she doesn't want to miss lunch with her friends or one of her activities with her friends.
I love it.
And what a blessing that is. She's such an inspiration to me at her age to still be caring about people and giving back to other people within the community. So it's been a transition for Doug and I. We've never had in our entire marriage. I married him, we had four girls, young daughters, and then we've been
Oh,
taking
you're
care of
right.
my mom.
Never
So
been
we're
just the
kind of
two of
like
you.
newlyweds now.
Wow. And you kind of act like it too. You're so cute.
Yeah, he is definitely my better half. I'm very blessed. When I married him, I did not just get an amazing husband and man of God, but an amazing extended family. My in-laws are truly my spiritual parents, his entire family. They're just amazing Christian loving people, and I'm so grateful for them.
So
So
you came, oh, so go on.
I was just going to say, this is our first season where it's just been him and I.
Yeah.
And what a gift that is at this season of life, to
Amazing.
really be enjoying each other, just the two of us. So yeah,
Yeah.
very much like newlyweds.
That's a unique, it may be not as unique as we think. I'm sure there's a lot of people that came to the ready-made family and then to
Yeah.
know that on the other side of that, that I can imagine that brings its own challenges coming into a new marriage and then also having all the kids and all the stuff, immediately.
It does. And we have actually led a class several times back at Calvary, which, we're certainly open to doing at Rock Harbor or anywhere where there's a need on blended families.
Oh, yes, we talked.
Um, it is, more than 40% of the families in our country are actually blended families. And the divorce rate in second marriages or third marriages is around 70% because
Mm-hmm.
the challenges are very unique and distinct. And to hear it, had we gone through this course before we got married or while we were even dating, we've even encouraged people that are single but think they might be in a blended family at some point to come to this class whenever it's offered, to learn, even if you're grandparents and you have your kids are in a blended family or you're an aunt and uncle. How do you deal with those different dynamics from a godly perspective? And what does
Mm.
God want from blended families? And I always say every time we leave that group, even Jesus had a stepfather, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Yes.
blended families out there, and
Yes.
it's a struggle and a challenge. And God walked us through it. We're on the other side of it. But whether you become a step parent when the kids are young, teenagers, or even when they're grown and out of the house, there is
Hmm.
challenges in all different phases of being a blended family.
Yeah. It's just not talked about enough in the church. And
Mhm.
like you're saying, we have a lot of that,
Mhm.
and so I love the idea of you guys doing that again. I hope that you will consider and pray about maybe even doing a summer one to see how many weeks is that study, do you know? Or does it depend?
I'd have to go back and look at, I think it was around 8 weeks.
Yeah.
It's been 2 years or so since we've done it, and we've led other groups since then, but the material is fantastic and
Oh,
it's
that's so
done
good.
from a biblical perspective. And what does God ask of us? And every time we lead a group, no matter what group it is, but specifically this group, we find that we learn just as much as we're sharing
Sure.
because every family dynamic and structure is so different. And at the end of the day, it's really about the children, right? Making sure that the children are being raised in a healthy, godly environment and to give them an opportunity to see what a healthy marriage looks like. And, Doug and I walked through some tough seasons.
Yeah.
We walked through some really difficult seasons, but, by God's grace and mercy, here we
Mhm.
are, 23
Mhm.
years into our marriage, and it's better than ever.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. You have so many areas throughout your life that can speak to so many different situations. And we all do as we trace our path. And sometimes it's the path we would have never expected or even wanted. And yet when we look back and we see, oh, God did this and he did that and he did that, then we can reach out and help people maybe who are a little bit, coming up behind us and be like, no, 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 hang on. Let me tell you what. was for me in that situation and what I see now and help people see those in the moment, So
Right.
I'm so thankful you're doing
Mhm.
this.
Mhm.
So what is your, there's so many great ways to go here. The questions are right there, but I feel like I want them all to make sense and flow well together. Um, is there a part of your journey that you haven't shared that you want to share to people in similar circumstances? Or is there a specific part or two that maybe have been the hardest or the most surprising that you would want to share with anyone listening who may be kind of in that same ballpark?
Absolutely. 10 years ago, we moved to Melbourne Beach, a dream come true for us. We lived across the bridge, but
Mhm.
we moved to it's just a dream come true, something we never imagined for ourselves. And 3 months after we moved here, I was involved in a serious car accident on 95, that required three major surgeries for me. I wound up having 3 levels fused in my neck, 4 levels fused in my low back, and a shoulder surgery. And we'd moved to a new place. We didn't know anybody. Doug was still commuting to Titusville 3 days a week. And I was in extreme pain. I had 3 to 4 years where I was going through surgeries and physical therapies and just really struggling physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of it, because we were far from our church. This was back in 2015 before Rock Harbor was even started. And I would have to say I've had a lot of difficult seasons, but I think it was the most difficult season of life for me. I'm an active person, and all of a sudden I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And God brought a verse into my life that I wrote it down with a Sharpie marker. It's still on my refrigerator 10 years later. And I have shared this verse with a lot of people that are struggling and going through difficult things because it's not a well-known one, right? We all know the verses that are very common in Christianese, right? When
Yeah.
people are speaking. This verse is from Isaiah, and it's Isaiah 48:10. And the verse says, "See, I am refining you, though not as silver, but rather in the furnace of affliction." And when I first read it, I did not like that verse.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Right?
Right?
I don't like affliction. I don't like being in the furnace of affliction. But let me tell you, I held on to that verse and it got me through some really dark times in my life. And it's so true, right? That God refines us during those valley seasons. It's when we're in that furnace, that's when our faith is really tested.
Mhm.
Um, and God never left my side. And in those first early months where the pain was just so intense and excruciating, it was hard not to focus on that. But I realized in looking back, it was during those dark months that God was doing work inside of me that I was not even aware of. And I ended up using that experience when I was going in and out of operating rooms and in and out of therapy sessions and having all these difficult things done to try and be joyful in those circumstances so that when I'm in those rooms with those people and they can see that I can still feel joy while I'm suffering and I'm in pain, that's
Mhm.
what we want our Christian faith to show to people, right? That even in the darkest of times, we recognize that that's when God is doing his best work in us.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm looking back on it. I'm grateful for that season, as hard as it was, because it made me recognize my daily need for God, that daily manna, right, in my
Mhm.
life, that God was providing for me, even though I wasn't really recognizing it while I was in the darkness.
Yeah.
But it was a difficult and trying season, but a season that I'm grateful for,
Mhm.
honestly, because I've been able to help other people that are experiencing similar things. And isn't that just the beauty of how God has designed us?
Yeah. That's his kingdom. What good would it be if we just lived our little perfect lives floating on a cloud and playing our harps and, you know, and then just
Right,
went to heaven and it was all good and we didn't have problems like, oh, sorry, I don't understand how you're struggling because, yay, Jesus. It's like we wouldn't
right,
relate. We
right.
wouldn't be able to bring others along. And a lot of times it's more about others watching us and how God can use us to show his glory and to bring others alongside than it is about just us, you know?
Absolutely.
And I've often said sometimes we're more valuable to the kingdom broken than whole. It's in our weakness, it's in those moments that his strength is made perfect. And that's when anybody can be a good example and a good witness for Jesus when everything is going perfect, right? I mean, it's the
Right.
story of Job. Satan's like, of course that guy's praising you. He has no problems and he's extremely blessed, but take all that away and then see what happens. And
Right.
it's tragic and it's tough, but look at the witness we have from Job because God permitted that to be tested because God had faith in Job's faith. And when I see people going through these really, really hard times, it's hard and you want to come alongside them in prayer. You want to help in any way that you can. But also, if we remember the story of Job and remember the things that the Lord has said and that scripture you just shared from Isaiah, wow, then it's like, okay, God is not going to give us anything we can't handle with his help. On our own,
Right.
sure, no. But we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. Everything that he's called us to do, he equips us to do. And so I can look at someone going through these times and be like, wow, God knows, what you've got. He knows he's with you. He knows the faith and the strength you have to fight this battle well with him. So I don't know, there's something about that we can really admire when we see the struggles others are going through.
Well, and I think another key point while we're talking about this is the importance of gratitude in
Mm,
our faith walk and really being showing gratitude. When the girls were teenagers, I used to always say the best attitude is gratitude, right? And
good.
it's
That's
kind
good.
of a catch-all phrase, right? The best
Uh-huh.
attitude is gratitude. But when we look at our Christian walk and our Christian faith, are we grateful to God in the difficult and the challenging times as much as we are grateful to him in the good seasons?
Yeah.
And that is really, I think, for me, from the seasons that I've walked through, is the thing that I've come out with, that when I open my eyes every morning, I just start thanking God um, for everything before my feet hit the floor, when I open my eyes, before I get out of bed, just stopping and giving God thanks and praise, even in those challenging and difficult times. And I worked with my career. I spent 26 years working for the Devereaux Foundation, which works with kids that have been horrifically abused, neglected, special needs kids. I worked in a residential facility. I worked with foster care kids, and that's another experience that God presented to me that has helped give me such huge perspective in my life in terms of how good he's been to me and the things that he's blessed me with. And anytime I was having a bad day at work, I would get up from my desk and I'd walk outside and I'd go onto one of our residential units, or I'd go into our school and I'd watch these kids that have autism, that are struggling just to get through the day, and kids that have been horrifically abused physically, mentally, emotionally, sexually. Um, but one of the beautiful things that came out of that experience wasn't just my own perspective, but seeing how God gifted those children. I met some of the most creative, artistic, musically inclined poets, writers out of that trauma, how God gave them these beautiful gifts.
Mm,
Um, and what a gift that's been for me in my life to help me with my perspective and how I face each day.
that's beautiful. It's so good. It's so good. And I feel like when you're in the hard times and you have to really mine for those things to be thankful for.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's easy to look around and things are going well and be thankful. And then sometimes you have to really dig. You have to really chisel away at things and find something to be thankful for. But I don't know. I just kind of had this image as you were talking. It's like, what would we be more thankful for if we're walking down the road and we trip over a beautiful stone and we're like, oh, that's nice. Or if we like were chipping away and working hard at the side of this, this mine, and we were digging through these rocks and pounding away and in the dirt to cultivate, pull out this gorgeous
Cultivate.
stone. It's the things that we have to mine for. Sometimes that
Yes,
can mean so much more. And there are times in our lives where we all hear that, oh, gratitude, gratitude, attitude of gratitude, but sometimes you have to work to find that.
you do.
And
You
that's
do.
good.
And there's another verse too, Jenny, that I wanted to share that's been really impactful to me in my Christian life. And it's from Luke. It's Luke 12:48. And it says, "To whom much has been given, much will be expected.
Yes.
And, when I think about the experiences that I've had in my life, the kids that I worked with, the thousands of kids that I saw that came through and all of those years, and the little things that we take for granted. And I think we have a responsibility as Christians to give back to um, those that weren't born into the circumstances that we were born into, or those that weren't given the same childhood experiences that we were blessed with. I mean, none of us had perfect parents because there's no perfect people. But when I look back at my life and the way that I was raised, I have so much to be grateful for and
Mhm.
thankful for. And I came to appreciate my parents so much more because of the experiences that I had in the workplace. And I think that it's important. And I don't know if we're going to talk about this later on in the conversation, but I really have a heart for local missions and our local community. I realize the importance of global missions as well, but the things that are happening right here in our community, that I came from a normal middle class family, I didn't know that these things were happening right around me. And there were
Mhm.
so many people in need and hurting. So I do have a heart for local missions, and we have a lot of good ministries that the church is currently supporting, and some that we may be supporting in the coming days, weeks, or months. Lots of opportunity for the people at Rock Harbor to get involved and help orphans and widows in distress right here in our community.
That's exactly where I was going to go with what you just said, because you were kind of leaning down that way. And my thing is, if anyone is listening and God's kind of tugging at your heart, you're like, you're right. I have been given so much is required, much I can give, and I can love on others out of the great love and faith and strength that God has given me. And if that's where you are, but you're like, okay, what do I do with this calling? You call Gina, right? Because correct me if I'm wrong, you and Doug are heading up the local missions team at Rock Harbor, correct?
That is correct. And I have been over the course of the past few months going out and meeting with the ministries that we already support as a church, as well as other ministries that we may consider supporting, and gathering data and just kind of finding out where and how our church could fit in, whether the church as a whole, some things that we could do as the church itself, but also for individuals, maybe
Yeah.
different circle groups may want to sponsor a local ministry that's in need of help. There's, the harvest is plenty, the workers are few,
Mhm.
and sometimes we have to get out of our comfort zone to work with populations that may make people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's how God really grows us, and
Yeah.
paying attention to what He's doing around us. And
Mhm.
we have so many giving people in our church, just amazing people. But I look forward to talking more about the local missions and the outreaches that are out there, and how we can get involved. And it doesn't just bless those ministries, it blesses us,
Yeah.
right? When
Yeah.
we give back to others, it's such a blessing. And getting your hands a little dirty sometimes,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Getting out
Yeah.
of those comfort zones. It's great to give. It's also good to actually, I used to say all those years that I worked at Devereaux, these were the kids that you'd hear about on the news, or you'd read about, and you turn the page or change the channel because it was too hard to listen to, or you
Yeah.
couldn't look at it. But
Yeah.
it doesn't change the fact that it exists. And there is evil in our world, and Satan is having a field day. And we as Christians need to be the light in that darkness.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can feel scary if that is something God's tugging at your heart to do. But the fact is to be able to join alongside other people of the church and do it together. You build
Yes,
relationships and community with those people, and it's a lot easier to step into that calling when you're not completely on your own, you know?
absolutely.
So if anybody's listening and you want to reach out to Gina, if you will go to the show notes, there's going to be show notes down at the bottom. If you're on YouTube, they'll be listed underneath or something. We'll figure it all out. But there will be a way to touch base with Gina and to be sure that you can connect and see how you can get involved and share your hearts, your gifts. What are the things that interest you? And they will find places to plug you in and get you connected. And so that's a wonderful ministry that she and Doug are doing for Rock Harbor and our community. And I'm so thankful for that. Really, I guess I want to I could just talk to Gina all day, but I know I want to respect everyone's time and keep these where they're not overwhelming to listen to and people feel like they don't have time. So we'll try to keep these as much as I can to half an hour-ish. So before we head off here, one of the questions I always end with is, do you have a life verse or a verse that is especially bringing you life right now? Is it one you've already shared, or do you have another one?
No, actually, well, a few.
Yay.
There's just a few I want to throw out there because I
Please.
respect the time thing also. But
No, it's
there's
good.
there's a verse in Genesis. It's Genesis 16:13, and I'm just sending this out there as an encouragement for anyone that's listening. And it's talking about El Roy. God has so many
Mm,
names, but El Roy is the God who sees me, and it's the story of Hagar when she's fleeing into the desert. And I just want to put that out there for anyone that's struggling, and if you're in a season where you think that God isn't aware what's going on in your life.
yeah.
Elroy always sees us. Genesis 16:13. Right now, Psalm 90:12. Um, it says, teach us to realize the brevity of life so that we may grow in wisdom, grow in our heart of wisdom. And Doug and I just led a class for 55 plus groups, for 55
Yes.
plus people at Rock Harbor. It's called the Seven Essentials for Finishing Well. And it's talking about what does God have for us in our aging years. And it's been so impactful. And we've had such a great group. It's such a great time. And I hope that we get to do it again.
Yes, yes. Oh, so good. So good. All right, Gina, if there is anyone listening right now who would love to personally reach out to you, connect, get coffee, really like dig more, mine more out of your story and connect with you, you up for that?
Absolutely. It always
All right.
blesses me. So,
Awesome. All right.
yes.
Hit the show notes. You can, anybody listening can always email me, Jenny at rhfl.org, and look in the show notes. We will find ways to connect you. So if you want to grab coffee with Gina, if you want to spend some time, if something in her story really hit home for you and you know that, hey, that's someone I could I could use in my life. I promise you, you will never regret time with Gina because it is so
Jenny.
special. So I hope you guys will reach out. Gina, thank you so much for doing this with us.
Thank you, Jenny, for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Jesus glorified, forever glorified.
Hey, friends, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed that episode and that you found some encouragement, some strength, and some wisdom to apply to your own journey. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an interview. I want to give a special shout out and a huge thank you to our very own Brian Bolivar, our worship leader at Rock Harbor Church, for providing his original song, Jesus Glorified, as the background music for our intro and outro. There's a link in the show notes for you to get the full download of that song, and I highly recommend you do. And if you want to go even deeper, check out my other podcast, the Intertwined Life Podcast, where we talk about the power of intertwining our walks with the Lord and our everyday life. All right, until next time, I wish you all the best. May you continue to connect with each other, to grow deeper in your walk with the Lord, and to notice His hand in your story.